So today, we're going to dive into the story of the International Baccalaureate. And it's a story that doesn't really start in a classroom, you know? It starts with this incredibly powerful, really ambitious idea. Could education actually be a direct path to a more peaceful world? We're going to see how the IB grew by solving one real-world problem after another for students in schools all over the globe.
All right, so here's the game plan. We'll kick things off with that founding mission. Then we'll look at the very practical problem of getting into college that led to the very first diploma program. Then we'll see how a big gap for younger students sparked the middle years program. And finally, we'll wrap up by looking at where the IB is today.
You know, to really get the IB, you have to start with its heart, its soul. Before there was any curriculum, before there were any exams, there was this really profound belief about what education should even be for. Now, where this all came from is actually a fascinating story. Back in the 1950s, this educational pioneer, Kurt Hahn, he visited the NATO Defense College, and he saw something that just blew his mind. Military officers who, just a few years earlier, had been fighting each other in World War II were now allies, working together. And it just sparked this huge idea for him. If former enemies could learn to cooperate, just imagine what we could achieve if we educated young people from different cultures together before any conflicts could start. And that idea, well, it became the absolute bedrock of the IB. This mission statement has been their North Star for more than 50 years. It's not just about getting good grades. It's about shaping people who get that other people with their differences can also be right.
Okay, so you've got this amazing mission for peace, right? But how do you actually do it? Well, the first big challenge for the IB's founders was a really practical one, a logistical nightmare that was giving international schools everywhere a huge headache.
This was the big problem. I mean, just think about it for a second. If you're a student at an international school in, say, Geneva, but you might want to go to university in the UK or the US or maybe Canada, what diploma do you even study for? There was just no single trusted qualification that could open all of those doors.
So the answer wasn't to just tweak an existing national curriculum. Nope, they realized they had to create something totally new. Not just an adapted diploma, but a truly global one, built from the ground up.
And what you see here is just this incredible sprint of activity. It all started as a recommendation from the International Schools Association, and it just took off. A new group, ISIS, was created just to build this thing. And get this, in only 6 years, they went from just an idea to a fully functioning diploma being taught in actual schools.
So there was this huge breakthrough moment during a debate between English and French educators. The English side wanted a really liberal system with lots of student choice, kind of like their A-levels. The French wanted a super structured, prescribed curriculum. It was late at night when this one guy, Gerard Reynaud, sketched out the compromise that became the heart of the IB, a structure that demands breadth but still gives students choice within it.
And this is what they came up with. It's actually brilliant. You have to take 2 languages. You have to take math. But then you also have to pick subjects from different groups: humanities, sciences, arts. This makes sure you get a really broad education and don't just specialize too early. And the thing that ties it all together is this unique course called Theory of Knowledge, which pushes you to ask, well, how do I know what I know? And really think about knowledge itself.
So the diploma program, it's a huge hit. But it created a brand new problem they hadn't seen coming. Schools now had this amazing inquiry-based program for their older kids, but what about all the years leading up to it?
It was actually schools in Africa, like the International School Moshi, that first flagged this issue. They called it a pedagogic disjunction, which is just a fancy way of saying there was a total disconnect. They were using the British O-levels to get students ready for the IB diploma, but the O-levels were built on a totally different philosophy of education.
And the IB's first Director General, Alec Peterson, he just hit the nail on the head. He argued that the whole point of a pre-IB education shouldn't be to just cram students' heads full of facts. The real goal should be to develop their powers of the mind. In other words, to teach them how to think, so they can handle any new challenge that comes their way.
And you can really see the clash right here. The O-level system was all about memorizing information and then just spitting it back out on an exam. But the IB diploma, it needed students who knew how to ask good questions, think critically, and connect ideas. The preparation and the final destination were just completely out of sync.
So, this mismatch just couldn't stand. And once again, a group of really dedicated educators looked at the situation and said, okay, if the right tool for the job doesn't exist, I guess we'll have to build it ourselves.
What's so cool about this part of the story is that it didn't come from the top down. It was a total grassroots, teacher-led movement.
It started with those schools in Africa, got sponsored by the ISC, and involved years of people working together. The first pilot schools were in completely different parts of the world, which just shows you how widespread the need was. It took more than 15 years, but this bottom-up approach finally led to the IB officially adopting the program and calling it the MYP.
So the program they ended up building, it was the perfect answer to all the problems with the old system. It put the student right at the center. It explicitly taught skills for learning how to learn, which the IB calls approaches to learning skills. It was all about making connections between subjects and the real world, getting students ready for the diploma program not by teaching them more facts, but by sharing the same core philosophy.
All right, so let's fast forward a bit and look at what this whole journey of solving problems one by one has built the IB into today.
I mean, today, the numbers are just staggering. We're talking about over 1.5 million young people all over the world studying in IB programs.
And those students are learning in almost 5,000 authorized IB World schools.
Spread out across 153 different countries, it's become a truly global community.
And it's not like this is old news. The growth is actually accelerating. If you just look at the flagship diploma program, the number of schools offering it jumped from around 2,300 in 2015 to almost 3,200 by 2023. That's a huge increase, and it shows just how much demand there is for this kind of education.
And, they didn't just stop there. The IB has now expanded to offer a full educational journey, from the primary years program and even a career-related program that connects academics with the vocational world. It's a path that can now start when a kid is 3 years old and go all the way up to 19.
So where does all this leave us? From Kurt Hahn's incredible vision of peace, born from the aftermath of war, to a massive global education system, the IB's story is really about evolution, driven by this incredibly consistent mission. And it leaves us with the big question that the organization itself is probably always asking. After all this time and with all this growth, is it truly succeeding in its mission to create a better world through education?